forest was dark, and the air was filled with the sound of unknown creatures moving between the tall alien trees. A lone human soldier walked carefully, his boots sinking into the strange moss that glowed faintly under the night sky. He was tired, his body aching from days of wandering, and his mind still confused from the battle that had brought him here. His squad was gone, the ship destroyed, and now he was alone on a world he did not understand. Every step felt heavier, but he kept moving because stopping meant death. That was when he heard the sound again, the low growl. At first, he thought it was just another predator. But when he turned, his eyes met hers. She stood tall, her figure both wolf-like and human. Her fur shimmered silver under the pale moonlight, and her glowing eyes locked onto his. She was not just an animal. There was intelligence, purpose, and something unspoken in her stare. For a long moment, they watched each other in silence, both unsure if the other was friend or enemy. The soldier raised his weapon slightly, his hands shaking from fatigue. She tilted her head, almost amused, and then growled again. Not in warning, but in challenge. He did not shoot. Instead, he lowered his weapon and waited. To his surprise, she stepped forward, slow and calm, until she was close enough for him to see the scars across her chest and the way her sharp claws flexed at her side. She looked like a warrior, not just a beast. The first night they stayed apart, watching each other from a distance. He lit a small fire to keep warm, and she sat in the shadows, eyes glowing as she observed him. The soldier tried to sleep, but every time he closed his eyes, he felt her watching. It was unsettling, but strangely, it gave him comfort. Nothing dared approach the camp while she was near. By morning, she was gone. He thought she had left him, but when he began to walk again, he noticed her tracks beside his own. She was following him, silent and hidden, never too close but never too far. Day after day, she was there. Sometimes she appeared with food, a strange fruit, or the leg of a creature she had hunted. Sometimes she disappeared into the forest, only to return when he was weakest. Slowly, the human began to feel less alone. One night, when the stars were brighter than usual, she finally came close. She sat across the fire, her eyes reflecting the flames. The soldier spoke softly, not knowing if she understood. "Why are you helping me?" he asked. She tilted her head, ears twitching, and then let out a sound. Not words, but something between a growl and a whisper. To his surprise, he felt he understood. She was saying, "Because you are mine to protect." The bond between them grew stronger with each passing day. She guarded his sleep, chased away threats, and even fought beside him when a pack of alien beasts attacked. He had never seen such power, such skill. Her claws cut through the monsters like blades, and her speed was impossible to follow with human eyes. Yet when the battle was done, she returned to his side, calm, almost gentle, as if she was afraid of scaring him. Still, there was something strange in the way she treated him. She always gave him the first share of food. She circled around him whenever danger was near, placing herself between him and harm. Sometimes, when he was tired and about to fall, she nudged him forward, refusing to let him give up. And when he looked into her eyes, he saw something he could not explain. It was not just loyalty. It was something deeper. The soldier began to wonder if she had chosen him for a reason. One night, as the fire crackled low, she leaned closer, her glowing eyes fixed on his. In a voice rough but clear, she spoke for the first time. "You must prepare, human," she said. Her words were heavy, her tone serious, as if warning him of something he could not yet understand. "Something is coming." The human froze. He had not expected her to speak at all, let alone in his own language. His heart raced, his mind filled with questions, but she did not explain further. She simply stared at him, her eyes glowing with a secret she was not ready to share. That night he could not sleep. Her words echoed in his mind. "You must prepare." Prepare for what? Was it another battle? Was it danger waiting in the shadows? Or was it something even stranger? Something he could not imagine? As dawn broke and the forest came alive with strange colors and sounds, The human looked at her again. She was watching him closely, her expression unreadable. For the first time he felt not just fear, but suspense. There was a truth hidden in her words, and whatever it was coming for him. The bond between them was no longer just survival. It was something deeper, something mysterious, and it was only the beginning. The days passed slowly, and the human soldier grew used to the presence of the alien canine at his side. What had once been fear was now replaced by something harder to define, a mix of trust and curiosity. Every time he looked at her, he noticed details he had missed before. The way her fur shimmered in sunlight, the way her ears twitched to every sound, the scars across her arms that told stories of old battles. She was not just a survivor like him. She was a warrior of her kind, and yet she stayed with him as if tied to his fate. But despite the strange bond growing between them, her words from that night haunted him. "You must prepare, human." They repeated in his mind every time he closed his eyes, and he waited, always wondering what she meant. One evening, when the red sun sank low behind the jagged cliffs and the fire painted their faces in orange glow, she broke her silence again. This time there was no warning, no soft approach. She looked directly at him, her eyes glowing bright as if lit from within, and said with a calm, steady voice, "Brace yourself, human." He froze, every muscle tightening, expecting danger, maybe an ambush in the shadows. But then she said something that made his blood run cold. "You are about to be a father to puppies." The words hit him like a strike. For a moment he thought he had misheard her, that the strange alien tongue had twisted into something his mind had confused. He stared at her, trying to understand if this was a joke, a cruel game played on a lost and tired soldier. "What?" he finally whispered, his throat dry. She did not laugh. She did not look away. Instead, she leaned closer, her sharp features serious, her voice low and firm. "It is true. We are having puppies. They will be born under the sky, and they will belong to both of us." The soldier's heart pounded so loudly he could barely hear the crackling fire. His thoughts raced in disbelief. How can this be? How is it even possible? He shook his head and stepped back as if the space between them could erase her words. "That's impossible," he said, his voice trembling. "I'm human. You're not." He wanted her to laugh, to admit it was only a strange misunderstanding. But her expression never changed. She was serious, more serious than he had ever seen her. She spoke again, slowly, as if explaining a truth carved into stone. She told him about her people's ancient history, about stories whispered across generations. Long ago, when her kind first traveled the stars, they had fought beside humans in forgotten wars. Bonds had been made, deeper than friendship, stronger than blood. Her people believed humans carried something unique in their spirit, something that could link with her kind in ways no other species could. The old legends said that when the bond was strong enough, life itself could grow from it. She told him he was chosen, not by chance, but because fate had brought them together again. The soldier felt his chest tighten. Every word she spoke sounded impossible, but the steady fire in her eyes made it difficult to dismiss. He wanted to argue, to deny, but his voice failed him. She leaned closer until her face was just inches from his, and her words carried a weight that crushed his doubts. "Do you not feel it?" she asked softly. "Every time we fight together, every time we share food, every time you look at me, the bond grows. It is already too late to deny. You must accept it. You must prepare." He tried to laugh, but the sound died in his throat. Deep down, he remembered the strange moments he had ignored. The way she guarded his sleep as if protecting more than just a companion. The way she watched him with eyes that carried not just loyalty but something stronger. Even the way she had placed herself in front of him during battles, ready to die first, as if his life meant more than her own. It all added up now, pieces of a puzzle he had refused to see. Still, the human's mind screamed in disbelief. He walked away from the fire, pacing under the alien sky, his hands shaking. "No," he whispered to himself. "This isn't real. It can't be." But when he turned back, she was still watching him, her eyes unblinking, her presence unshaken. She did not look like someone telling lies. She looked like someone delivering truth, no matter how hard it was to accept. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating, until the soldier finally sat down again. He buried his face in his hands, his breath quick and uneven. He wanted to scream, to demand answers the universe could not give. But instead he whispered one question, the only one that mattered. Why me? For the first time, her expression softened. She reached out slowly, her clawed hand resting gently against his arm. Because you were strong when others were weak, she said. Because you did not fear me when you should have. Because you fought beside me, not against me. You carry the spirit my people remember. You are the human I chose. Her words struck him harder than the first revelation. She had chosen him. Not by accident, not by mistake, but by choice. And if what she said was true, then his life was no longer his alone. Something was coming, something greater than both of them, and he could not run from it. As the night deepened, the fire burned low, and the forest sang with the sounds of distant predators. The soldier sat in silence, his thoughts heavy, his heart still racing. Across the flames, the alien canine watched him closely, her eyes glowing with secrets and certainty. He knew nothing would ever be the same again. The human sat by the fading fire, his mind trapped between fear and disbelief. The alien canine's words echoed in his head like a curse he could not escape. We are having puppies. He wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it, but no laughter came. Instead, a storm brewed inside him, heavy and wild, tearing apart the walls of logic he had built to survive. He clenched his fists, staring into the embers as if the fire could burn away the truth. But her glowing eyes never left him. She sat across from him, calm and steady, her presence like a mountain unmoved by his chaos. He tried to convince himself it was impossible. He was human. She was not. Their bodies, their blood, their worlds, everything about them was different. Yet, deep down, something inside him whispered that she was not lying. He remembered the way his pulse raced whenever she drew near, the strange warmth in his chest when her glowing eyes softened toward him, the unspoken comfort he felt every time she touched his arm or shielded him from danger. He had ignored it, pretending it was just survival instinct, but now he could not run from the truth. Something was happening, and he was at the center of it. Anger began to rise, sharp and uncontrollable. He stood up suddenly, his voice breaking in the silence. No, this isn't real. You can't just tell me something like that and expect me to accept it. I didn't choose this. I didn't agree to this. His words echoed into the forest, startling the small creatures that hid in the shadows. For the first time, the alien canine's expression shifted. Her glowing eyes narrowed, and she stood slowly, her tall figure casting a long shadow across the dying fire. She did not roar, she did not attack, but the weight of her gaze crushed his anger. You think you have a choice? She said, her voice calm but cutting like a blade. The bond was made the moment you accepted me, the moment you trusted me. You carry it whether you wish it or not. She stepped closer, her claws digging into the ground as if to remind him of her strength. Do not mistake this for weakness, human. Our fates are tied, and you cannot run from it. The human's heart pounded, torn between fear and defiance. He wanted to run, to leave her behind, to escape into the wilderness where at least the danger made sense. But he knew he would not last a day without her. Every creature in this world wanted him dead. She was the only reason he still breathed. Yet the thought of being bound to her in such a way, of carrying a responsibility so unnatural, nearly broke him. He dropped back to the ground, his voice softer now but heavy with pain. Why me? The alien canine crouched before him, her fierce eyes softening once again. She placed a clawed hand over his chest, where his heart beat furiously against his ribs. Because you are stronger than you know, she said. Because your spirit is not like the others I have seen. My people tell old stories, but I have lived them now. I have seen it with my own eyes. You fight not only with your hands but with your soul. That is why it is you. That is why the bond chose us. Her words cut deep, tearing through his denial and leaving him exposed. He wanted to argue, but his voice failed him. He thought of the nights they had fought together, of the times she had stood in front of him like a shield, of the countless moments when her presence alone had given him the strength to take another step. It was true. She had become more than a companion. She was his anchor in this alien world. But was he ready to carry the weight of what she was asking of him? The struggle inside him only grew heavier when new dangers appeared. One night, as the wind howled through the forest, they were attacked by a rival tribe of alien hunters. They had been watching from the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. The human barely had time to react before spears flew past him, one striking the fire and sending sparks into the air. The alien canine leapt in front of him, snarling, her claws flashing as she tore through the first attacker. The human grabbed his weapon, firing wildly into the dark. The battle was brutal, chaotic, and short. When it ended, the ground was stained with blood, and the enemy had fled into the night. Breathing heavily, the human looked at her, his hands trembling. She was covered in wounds but stood tall, unbroken. "They know," she said grimly. "They know what we are. They fear it. They will not stop." Her words carried a terrible weight. This was no longer just about survival. Others wanted to end them before their bond grew stronger. The human realized he was not only fighting his own disbelief, he was now caught in a war he did not understand. That night, as she rested by the fire with her wounds slowly healing, the human sat in silence, staring at her. He thought of leaving, of slipping away while she slept, of running into the darkness where no one could find him. But when he imagined her waking alone, abandoned by the one she had chosen, something inside him twisted painfully. He could not do it. No matter how much fear burned in his chest, he could not walk away. The struggle inside him was not yet finished. Doubt and fear gnawed at him like hungry beasts. But as he watched her breathing slowly by the fire, scars glowing faintly under the alien sky, he felt the truth pressing harder against his heart. The bond was real. The danger was real. And whether he wanted it or not, his life was no longer his own. He had become part of something greater, something terrifying, and there was no escape. The days that followed the attack were tense, every step filled with the weight of unseen eyes in the forest. The human soldier could feel it. He was no longer just a lost wanderer, no longer just a survivor clinging to life. He had become a target, marked by forces he could not see but could always feel. The alien canine stayed close to him, her sharp senses always alert, her ears twitching at every sound, her eyes glowing like torches in the darkness. She did not speak often, but when she did, her words carried a warning. "They will come again," she said one night, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "And next time they will not fail." The human struggled with the weight pressing on his shoulders. He was still trying to understand the strange bond that tied them together, still trying to accept the impossible truth she had revealed. Yet the world around him gave no time for thought, no room for hesitation. He had to be ready, because danger was no longer a shadow. It was marching toward him with weapons drawn. It began with smoke on the horizon. The human smelled it first, the acrid sting of burning wood drifting through the air. Then came the distant echoes of drums, a steady rhythm that sent shivers down his spine. The alien canine growled low in her throat, her claws flexing as if already tasting the battle. "The tribes," she said. "They gather their warriors." He wanted to ask how many, but the look in her eyes told him the answer: too many. By nightfall they came. Torches lit the forest in orange and red, shadows of armored figures moving between the trees. The enemy surrounded them, hundreds of eyes watching from the dark, their weapons glinting in the firelight. The human's breath quickened as he gripped his rifle tighter, his hands slick with sweat. He had fought in battles before, but never like this. This was not a war for territory or orders. It was a war for his very life, for the strange bond that tied him to her. The first attack came swift. Arrows rained down from the trees, forcing him to dive into the dirt. The alien canine leapt beside him, her claws flashing as she cut through attackers who dared to come too close. Her movements were like a storm, fast and merciless, her snarls echoing through the forest. The human fired into the crowd, each shot finding its mark, each explosion of light tearing holes in the enemy line. But for every one that fell, two more stepped forward. The enemy was relentless. The human felt the ground shake as larger warriors pushed through the trees, their bodies covered in thick armor made of bone and steel. They towered over him, weapons heavy enough to crush a man in a single strike. Fear clawed at his chest, but he forced himself to stand, firing again and again until his rifle clicked empty. He cursed under his breath, dropping the weapon and pulling out his knife. Beside him, the alien canine roared, her claws tearing through armor, her strength unmatched. But even she could not be everywhere at once. The battle stretched into chaos. Fire spread through the forest, smoke choking the air, screams of pain mixing with the clash of steel. The human fought with desperation, every strike a reminder that his death could come at any second. He was cut across the arm, blood dripping into the dirt, but he kept going, his mind fueled not just by survival but by something more. He remembered her words. "We are having puppies." As impossible as it seemed, those words had planted something inside him, something that refused to let him fall. He was not fighting only for himself anymore. He was fighting for her, for them, for the future neither of them fully understood. The enemy pushed harder, closing in around them. The human stumbled, nearly falling under the weight of a heavy blow. But she was there, her body colliding with the attacker, her claws ripping through flesh and bone. She growled at him, her voice filled with command. "Stand, human. Do not fall now." Her tone was sharp, but behind it was something deeper, something desperate. She needed him as much as he needed her. With renewed strength, he rose. Together they fought back to back, their movements falling into rhythm as if they had trained their whole lives for this moment. She struck with power, he struck with precision. She roared, he fired. Each covered the other's weakness. Each shielded the other's life. And slowly, against all odds, they began to push the enemy back. But the rival tribes were not easily broken. A massive figure stepped forward from the smoke, its body wrapped in dark armor, its face hidden behind a skull mask. The enemy leader. His voice was deep, filled with rage. "The bond ends here," he growled. "You are an abomination. Both of you." He raised a massive weapon, a blade longer than the human's body, and charged. The human barely had time to move before the strike came crashing down. He rolled aside, dirt spraying into his face, the ground splitting where he had stood. The alien canine leapt at the leader, claws tearing at his armor, but the warrior swung again, throwing her aside. She hit the ground hard, a cry of pain escaping her lips. The human's heart stopped. For the first time, he saw her fall, and rage unlike anything he had ever felt filled his chest. He grabbed his broken rifle, using it like a spear, and charged. The leader swung again, but the human ducked under, driving the weapon into the gaps of armor with all his strength. The warrior roared, staggering back, and in that moment the alien canine rose again, blood dripping from her wounds, and together they struck. His blade piercing the enemy's chest, her claws tearing through his mask. The leader fell with a final scream, crashing to the ground. Silence followed, broken only by the crackle of fire and the heavy breaths of the two survivors. The remaining warriors hesitated, their courage breaking as their leader lay dead. Slowly, one by one, they vanished into the smoke, retreating into the night. The human collapsed to his knees, his chest heaving, his body broken but alive. She limped toward him, her glowing eyes dim but still fierce. She knelt beside him, her hand pressing gently against his wound. "You see now," she whispered, her voice heavy with exhaustion. "This is why you must accept the bond. Without it, we would have fallen. With it, we stand." The human stared at her, his heart pounding. He had fought wars before, but never like this. For the first time, he understood the truth. This bond was not a curse. It was strength. It was survival. And maybe, just maybe, it was something even greater. The night after the battle was heavy with silence. The forest, once alive with the constant sounds of predators and alien cries, now seemed to hold its breath. Smoke drifted lazily through the air, the last signs of fire fading into glowing embers on the ground. The human soldier sat with his back against a tree, his body aching with wounds, his mind spinning with memories of the fight. Every cut, every bruise throbbed with pain, but none of it mattered as much as the sight of her, his alien companion, resting only a few feet away, her body marked with deep scars but her breathing steady. For a long while he simply watched her. She looked different now, not because her form had changed, but because of what they had faced together. She was no longer just a strange creature he had met in the forest, no longer simply a protector who had chosen him. She was his partner, his shield, his equal. And her words from before the battle now carried a weight he could not deny. Without the bond, we would have fallen. With it, we stand. When she stirred and opened her glowing eyes, they locked onto his immediately, as if she had never truly been asleep. Slowly, with effort, she pushed herself up and limped toward him. Her steps were unsteady, but her presence was still powerful, every movement filled with the same determination that had carried them through the fight. She lowered herself beside him, the warmth of her body brushing against his arm, and for a while they sat together in silence, listening to the forest slowly return to life. At last she spoke. Her voice was softer now, but no less firm. The tribes will come again. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next moon, but they will not stop. They fear what we are, human. They fear what we will bring into this world. Her hand, scarred and clawed, reached toward him and rested over his chest where his heart beat steadily. That is why you must no longer deny it. You must accept me. You must accept us. The human looked down, his thoughts heavy. Days ago he would have laughed at the idea. Days ago he would have run into the forest, desperate to escape the impossible truth. But now, after fighting beside her, after nearly dying at her side, he felt something different inside himself. It was not just fear or disbelief, it was a strange sense of belonging, a feeling that this was where he was meant to be, even if the galaxy itself thought otherwise. He lifted his hand slowly and placed it over hers. His voice shook at first, but the words carried the strength of his heart. I accept. Her eyes glowed brighter, and for the first time since he had met her, she smiled. Not the fierce, tooth-bearing grin of a predator, but something gentler, something deeply alive. She leaned closer, her forehead touching his, and whispered, Then brace yourself, human, for soon you will be a father. The words no longer struck him with fear. Instead, they filled him with a strange fire, a mix of hope and dread, of courage and uncertainty. He still did not understand how it was possible, still did not know what the future would look like, but he no longer needed all the answers. He only needed to know that they would face it together. In the days that followed, they built something more permanent than a camp. Using broken stone and wood, they raised walls, small at first, but strong enough to keep out wandering predators. The human taught her techniques from his world, how to set traps, how to reinforce the barriers, how to purify water with tools he had salvaged. In return, she taught him the ways of the forest, what fruits healed, what roots gave strength, and how to listen to the shifting winds to know when danger was near. Their lives, once separated by species and culture, slowly wove together into one rhythm, one bond. Sometimes at night, when the stars stretched endless above them, she would sit close to him and tell stories of her people. She spoke of the old wars, of the legends of bonds between humans and her kind, of children born in times long forgotten. He listened quietly, always skeptical, but never dismissive, because the way she spoke made the stories feel alive, as if the very stars bore witness to their truth. And though his heart still carried doubts, his spirit felt lighter each time she reminded him, they will be ours. They will change everything. But the world did not forget them. Scouts from rival tribes were spotted at the edge of the forest, their eyes filled with hatred, their whispers carrying warnings back to their leaders. The human knew war would return, greater and heavier than before. Yet he no longer trembled at the thought. He no longer felt like a lost soldier abandoned on a strange world. He felt like something more, He had a purpose now, a reason to fight that no army could ever take from him. On one quiet evening, as the red sun dipped below the horizon, he turned to her and asked, "Do you ever wonder what they will be like? Our puppies." She tilted her head, her glowing eyes soft with thought. "They will be strong," she said with certainty. "Stronger than me, stronger than you. They will carry the blood of two worlds, and for that the galaxy will fear them. But they will also carry hope. Hope that our kinds can stand together, not apart." Her words stayed with him long after the fire went out and the forest grew silent again. He knew their path ahead would not be easy. The tribes would come, more battles would be fought, and their bond would be tested by every force that sought to break it. But in that moment, with her beside him and the promise of a future he never imagined, he felt ready. As he closed his eyes, he remembered the first time she had spoken to him, the warning that had set everything in motion. "You must prepare, human. Something is coming." Back then, he had thought it was just danger, just war. But now he understood. What was coming was bigger than all of that. What was coming was life itself, a future no one else could have predicted. And for the first time, he was not afraid.